Hello everyone, today I'd like to be taking a look at the, around 20% of all Magic, and just asking the question, why is it just not very good in Commander? I'm going to be analysing why this is in detail, looking at some popular commanders, how they break the mold, and ultimately how can red improve to the point where it's actually, slightly more viable than mono white. As always, like in the cards you see here in this video today, please make sure you have all your purchases being done through our lovely affiliate links found in the description box below. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but really helps the channel out quite a lot. So, red, the colour of anger, rage, being fast. Three things that don't really work in Commander. And that's where we get into the first major issue with this particularly problematic pigment. Red is all about hitting in quick and getting in under your opponents before they get the chance to build a board state. Monastery Swift Spear is a perfect example of this type of effect and sees play in pretty much every format that can play it in the red aggro deck of that format. She comes out turn 1, gets bigger as burn spells are being cast, and importantly, has haste. But in Commander with a hefty 40 life total and 3 opponents, this just doesn't cut it. Arguably the only aggro strategy that's viable in Commander is Infect. That's due to the fact that you only need to inflict 10 lots of infect damage, so 30 in total, rather than reducing 120 points of life down to 0. Which lets us get to our second problem. Burn isn't viable. Not without some help at least. As I've said, burning through 120 life is not easy. Take a look at the top commander for burn from EDHrec.com and then we see a Monday, who essentially turns the burn we have for creature removal into damage to each opponent, which is pretty good. It essentially is doubling the effectiveness of each of the cards. Contrast this meanwhile with my favourite burn commander, Niv Mizzet, a card I actually did a deck tech on. That's how much I liked the card. Because with Niv out, burn equals card draw, and thus we get to keep going through our deck, burning more and more each time. After all, turning Flame Rift into a draw 9 cards for 2 mana is pretty good. Plus, the access to blue now means we have genuine ways of interacting with our opponents, which brings me on to my next point. The removal just isn't great. Once the big stompy creatures start coming out, or anything with, more than 3 toughness, all that burn removal just becomes completely inoperable. So we end up being left with cards like Chaos Warp or Wild Magic Sorcery, and whilst these cards are both removal spells, they do still get your opponent potentially under the card, and potentially a far more serious threat. But Alex, I hear the caffeine-addicted red players amongst you snarl. What about the board wipe? Red's got loads of them and some of them are the best. Ah yes, the red board wipes. Blasphemous Act is such a almost ubiquitous commander staple that it feels like it gets included in pretty much every single precon that has red in it these days. Which I do understand, it's essentially going to be 1 red mana, deal 13 damage for everything. Pretty damn good. Chain Reaction, meanwhile, is also probably going to wipe the entire board, because having more creatures out means it's going to deal more damage, and thus, you get the idea. And then of course Chandra's Ignition gets to wipe the board provided you have the biggest creature, plus you get to deal a sizable piece of damage to everyone's face. Nice. Now let's take a look at Mono Black's board wipes, shall we? Their blasphemous effect is to sacrifice creatures so it gets around indestructible effects, or even huge creatures with bigger than 13 toughness. For 4 mana, it doesn't get us a chain reaction, it gets us a straight damnation, destroying all creatures and preventing any regeneration. And truce, while the Toxic Deluge does not hit our opponent's life totals, it is 2 mana cheaper than Charmed Ignition, and also doesn't end up fizzling because someone just removed your creature that you were targeting with the Ignition. Now I don't know about you guys, but I am not a massive fan of having my board wipe countered by a removal spell and essentially being 2 for 1. That's not on my greatest hits of good times. And now that we have been 2 for 1, this brings me neatly on to my next point, is that the card draw on red kinda sucks. It is all of the style of either rummaging, where you lose cards from your hand and then just hopefully get some more cards and better cards to replace them, or your impulse drawing, whereby you exile cards from the top of your library and you can then play them usually within a turn, or if you're lucky, a turn or two. So in the first instance, we're losing cards to gain a card, when literally every other colour gets just straight card draw. Heck, even white gets card draw provided someone else has drawn cards. And the impulse draw is slightly better as we get to keep cards in our hand, but after playing my beloved Lelia deck for years, I can tell you now it still deeply hurts when you exile your massive fat payoff card on turn 4 and you simply have no way of casting it. So it has to sit there in exile, laughing at you for the rest of the game. Now, if we take a look at the top mono-red commanders, we might see how these problems are being solved in-game, and maybe even are able to then potentially think about how to properly solve them. The top 3 commanders, according to EDHrec.com, are Krenko Mob Boss at number 1, Magda a Brazen Outlaw at number 2, and Orja Axonil at number 3. Krenko wins out by relying on the incredibly long history of Goblin support throughout all of Magic's long past, that keeps getting added to all the time. The Gobbos have tutors, their own removal, and their own plethora of support cards. Magda doesn't really get to, rely on the rich history of Dwarf support in Magic, as there kind of really isn't any, but far more onto the fact that they see play in cEDH, with being able to tutor up their artifact win combo pieces, and generate mana in a very quick fashion via treasures, and then get to put cards into play like Portal to Phyrexia, on turn 3 or 4. And Orja can't really be killed, so command attack is something for other people to worry about, and he gets to turn all these 1 damage pingers into actual 4 damage dealers. With, much like how I talked about in Monday, essentially making those 1 and 2 mana spells far more impactful for their otherwise low cost. Each of these commanders tries to solve one of the problems of red in their own way. Krenko generates more value off the creatures by he himself working with kindred synergies, and makes up for the lack of card draw by being the deck's creature base all by himself. Magda gets around the rampant card draw issue by making treasures and then just tutoring cards directly into play, and also, as mentioned, has ridiculously silly combo potential. And Orja boosts the viability of Burn by quadrupling the potency of pingers. But then they just kind of ignore the rest of the issues. Now, what red really needs is red just straight card draw. And no, I don't want red to have, just its own red version of Harmonize. That wouldn't be very flavorful. But perhaps a mechanic in which you would draw a card if you've dealt excess damage to someone via a burn spell. Or perhaps maybe in something like a Y'shtola effect, whereby you draw a card at a particular step, maybe end of combat, if you've dealt a certain amount of damage to someone. Minus the life gain and drain bit, obviously. Or maybe even if you attack with a creature that has haste, a very red mechanic. And yes, look, I know Ognis already has that kind of ability that you get a tapped treasure, but we're just spitballing here, people. Personally, I would love to see a mono-red commander that really helps deep dive more into treasures, not just like Magda does to be able to shoot up a win con. I want to see that so then they can get out their big, impressive, high-end red cards that can then actually propel them forward in the game. And then red maybe actually getting some genuine support cards that are unique to it and its own colour identity, rather than just, relying on Krenko going through skull clamping your entire goblin army away until you eventually find a Purphoros. And that will be the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. What are some genuine favourite cards you have that are in mono red that maybe I didn't mention? Do you think I'm being too harsh on mono red? Let me know in the comments below whatever your thoughts. As always, all Affinity for Commander content is made possible thanks to the support of our amazing patrons. You guys are truly awesome. If you too like to help out supporting the channel and get access to exclusive EDH related rewards, including getting your own deck tech done here on the channel, then be sure to check out our link in the description box below. You can also support the channel through the quick and easy ways, liking this video, subscribing, commenting, and hitting that bell icon so you never miss a video. But that'll be it from me for now, guys. As always, I've been Alex, and I'll see you next time.